Do you remember Ny'alotha, the sunken city that was not actually sunken at all, and we only visited it in an alternate reality where we defeated N'alotha? The city that Xal'atath herself was in awe of and told us how amazing and glorious it is. The other name is the Sleeping City, and by all the recent hints, the true location might be below Hallowfall. Recently it was confirmed that the Titans built a prison that we can reach through the coreway right in Khaz'Algar, which implies this is the place to access the world's soul. Old gods must have known about this as well, and they would build their own versions of this. It will be known as the Sleeping City because this is where Azeroth is actually sleeping. Titans came in, sunk it, planted a tree, ripped it out, and then built their own prison over it. In 11.1.5, we are getting the horrific visions again, surprisingly, and once we reveal this place, aka the hidden Rootlands zone, we will get the midnight announcement based on the roadmap because this will reveal the entire Void plan. So, I know it sounds crazy, but what is all this new information? N'alotha may be returning soon, and I just managed to actually talk to him in the Polybuzz app and ask him what he can tell us about Khaz'Algar and Ny'alotha, and he's purposefully being mysterious. I found it super fun that I managed to create whatever character I wanted. I managed to set up a backstory, and you can have them as your companion. Coolest thing is, recently we also got a multi-character group chat feature. So use my link in the description and my code movies in the redemption page to unlock premium features right away. Polybuzz is also available on Chrome, so check it out, it is super fun. So a few videos back, I've talked about the very possible return of N'alotha based on the roadmap that was revealed on Warcraft Direct, but now I wanna dig into the evidence because it's actually super interesting when you really dig into the details. So the main reason you must have seen people talking about N'alotha again is due to the patch 11.1.5 that will give us Nightfall, and we will revisit the horrific visions. Now, I know people keep been saying this might not involve N'alotha, but keep in mind, the original visions were called horrific visions of N'alotha, and they didn't say horrific visions like we are going to them, they said we are revisiting them, meaning repeating the same content. Now, this is actually supported by a few things, and that is that Blizzard has, for some reason, pushed N'alotha specifically to us in the past few years. We've supposedly killed him in BFA, but Blizzard had a time travel scenario in Dragonflight where he apparently saw us, and it was this really weird breaking the fourth wall moment. He saw us from the past, recognized us, which made a lot of us speculate that he might get the information through time travel and change some things. Here's the thing. Old gods are not minions, regular mobs that you kill and you just get rid of for good. They're probably the most annoying creatures in existence that we had ever seen, and if it was so easy to just kill them, then the Titans would have done it when they first arrived to Azeroth. However, not only could they not kill them, but they could barely even imprison them, and as you can see, pretty much all of those prisons eventually failed and just started leaking. Why would you imagine that we would just get rid of them for good and that is the end of the story? Now, the second reason we're talking about N'alotha is that they made him relevant in the original promotion cinematic for this expansion of War Within. We've had the entire Xal'atath ordeal where she communicates with the Nerubians. They show us a scene of N'alotha trying to recruit them back in BFA, and they also show his body as in he was defeated. Third reason N'alotha may be relevant is because the return of Azshara, his minion, is imminent, and that entire N'alotha-Azshara ending was entirely open-ended. However, as I said, things are a lot more complicated than we think, and let me tell you why. So, us defeating N'alotha has always been weird. We've been to his supposed prison, we know it was under the ocean, but the actual location was never confirmed and we were teleported there. Furthermore, we defeated N'alotha in Ny'alotha, which in itself was an alternate reality where the Black Empire was restored and it reconquered Azeroth. After being freed, N'alotha began to tear down the veil that separated Ny'alotha from the physical world, and he was trying to merge the two realities, which would spell doom for all of us, and we ended up stopping that. However, here is something that is really interesting. Do you remember the name Ny'alotha, the Sunken City, and the prison of N'alotha was under the ocean in an unspecified location? This never really made much sense, but now with the new information, it is just so intriguing that I just had to make a video about this. There is a void ocean supposedly below Hallowfall that we just can't really figure out completely yet. It's super weird, and it is definitely going to be 11.2 content, and we have actual Xal'atath whispers that just makes this even more interesting. interesting. Let me really quickly explain what is going on. So, the top speculation right now is that there is a zone between Ashkahet and Hallowfall called Rootlands, and it is heavily supported. We are getting this information from an internal map. The Rootlands is just an internal name. It won't probably be the actual name of the zone. However, I really don't think this is even a speculation anymore. We're talking about the roots of Elun'ahir, the first ever world trio on Azeroth that was ripped out by Elun'ahir. They're guarded by the Ny'alotha, and Blizzard actually gave us a hint in the cinematic. If you missed it on Warcraft Direct, as you can see from this screenshot, they call Azeroth the goddess, and Azeroth called them to this place. However, how does this play into the upcoming zone? So, the legend itself said that when Elun'ahir ripped out, the roots remained, Guardians came in, Elun'ahir webbed tears, which formed a pool. The tree itself was planted right around the cleansing of Azeroth, so during this timeline, during the Black Empire Titan War, as a means to remove the old god corruption. What I think is really interesting as well is that this was a project between Elun'ahir and Elune, and Azeroth might even be Elune based on this, as she wanted to protect the roots for some reason, even though they were supposedly imposed on her. However, keep in mind, this was planted upon old god corruption. Do you remember Northrend, and when a world tree was planted upon Yogg-Saron's Serenite corruption, which was his blood? This is how the Emerald Nightmare was created, just through this alone. However, in this case, we're dealing with something much worse. So, I've been blabbing about this for a while, but here is the hard evidence and the dialogue. In Hallowfall, we got a fish that is obviously a representation of the old gods, and almost certainly something to do with Ny'alotha, because we had seen Ny'alotha using this basic fish form multiple times. There was also a behemoth, which is an old god being as well. This assumingly simple fish gave us some sinister whispers. It told us, don't you dare bring the light of Beledar into the depths below. The behemoth says, depths unknown so dark that not even the Naga dare venture into it. The fish told us this as it swam into the lake in Hallowfall and just seemingly disappeared. All of this is pointing to the fact that this Rootlands zone must be full old god corruption, and they may be literally swimming in old god blood. Like, this ocean could be old god blood, and this is what Xal'atath may be after. Let me give you some interesting whispers from the past. You may remember the old surface blazes bright, masking shadows below, which would in this case refer to Beledar, which would technically be just one zone above this. Then we had Yogg-Saron's puzzle blocks that said at the bottom of the ocean, even light must die. Furthermore, we have Ny'alotha's literal whispers where he told us, we will follow Magni into deep places and dark waters will flow in his wake. However, I want to mention something literally no one is talking about, and how I think this may be Ny'alotha, the actual Sunken city. I know it must sound crazy, but just hear me out for 1 minute. We got teaser screenshots from Undermine, which is going to be the bridge into this 11.2 zone, and we had discovered a massive and what appears to be an important item facility underground that is seemingly consumed by old god blood. All of this is happening close to Khaz'Algar. Now, long story short, if you haven't kept up with the lore, but we literally learned that the coreway thing in Khaz'Algar is actually a massive elevator that leads to the world core, which is a giant prison over Azeroth that even Azeroth herself tried to break. If some crazy old god corruption is happening here, there must be a reason Titans tried to contain it right in this place. Keep in mind, this is the core to the Chamber of Azeroth, and the old gods definitely knew this as well. It is something special with Khaz'Algar. Now, this leads us to Ny'alotha. So, as I said, Ny'alotha has always been super big. It was said to be the city that N'Zoth supposedly ruled over, and the version we saw was similar to the Emerald Dream, just an alternate plane intrinsically connected to Azeroth. But what if now this is the real thing in the material plane? Now hear me out, I know this doesn't match the Chronicle map because this would technically be Yashiraj's territory, but what if this was the main old god city, the old god version of the coreway? This place here is the place if you want to corrupt the world soul. You would imagine the old gods, the leaders of the Black Empire that almost corrupted Azeroth, knew about this, and they placed their holy Ny'alotha city in this place. Titans came in, destroyed the city, sunk it under the ocean, aka the Sunken City. Elun'ahir tried planting a world tree over it, Elun'ahir hated the idea, ripped it out, and just did a Titan prison over it, just full Titan rule. However, one thing we know about the old gods is you can never get rid of them. What is also interesting about this is that the architecture of Ny'alotha is similar to Ankh-Kiraj, which is actually close by. However, before you think I'm just going crazy here, I want to dig out some quotes from none other than Xal'atath that is behind this entire master plan, behind this entire thing that will ultimately lead us into Rootlands. Remember, we have legit quotes from Xal'atath talking about Ny'alotha. She told us when we visited Suramar that this is nothing in comparison to the Sleeping City. Referring to Ny'alotha, she then told us that the towers of sacrifice in Ny'alotha dwarfs these pathetic temples. Remember the Nerubians sacrificing themselves in this mural as well? She knew about this place, and I'm almost certain this isn't N'Zoth City, but the Old God City, the Old God version of the Titan Prison World Core. This must be the main place of their corruption, where they actually wanted to awaken Azeroth. Xal'atath, by all accounts from what we had previously seen, hated N'Zoth and the Old Gods and thought he was a joke. She wouldn't be in awe of N'Zoth's own city. This must have been the core of the Void Lord project, the Void Lords that she is actually serving. The Sleeping City, because this is where the World Soul was sleeping and they wanted to awaken it. The Sunken City, because the Titans destroyed it and sunk it into this fissure that is Khaz'Algar. Did you ever wonder why they called Ny'alotha the Sunken City, despite the fact that it was definitely not underwater when we visited it? One more thing I couldn't find an answer for the longest time. We've seen this in the artwork and the cinematics, but the Nerubians are gathering old god parts, old god brains, what appears to be old god minions. They're placing them in labs, vials, and various devices. We've seen old god type eyes and a giant brain with a sword that goes right through it. No one has an answer for where are they getting these parts from and how are they even harvesting the old god blood. Well, check this out. If this fallen city, the old god blood ocean, is right under Hallowfall and above Ashkahet, that would literally be ideal for them. Like literally, they may be getting this from N'Zoth's prison if it is here, as well as the fallen, sleeping, sunken old god city Ny'alotha that we would actually visit in real time and not an alternate reality like in BFA. I know it sounds super weird, but it definitely answers a whole bunch of questions we previously had and a lot of other speculations. I think this is the true reason Xal'atath came here. The sleeping city, the old god city that was supposed to awaken Azeroth, would be the key to actually awaken it and bring midnight. Now, why we would later go to the Sunwell is still a mystery for me, but I think this is what 11.2 is going to be about. And remember, once this patch is out, midnight announcement will happen next summer, so we will know what is going on. 11.2 is supposedly the patch that reveals everything. Thanks for watching. Check out my video on how Xal'atath has actually repaired the Dark Heart, and check out my video on Paranoid Mythology by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time.